Hello, YouTube! So I think I've only mentioned this kind of casually in passing before now, but last summer I kind of dated my ex from high school, and it's kind of a funny story, I think, so I thought I would share it. And, you know, it kind of did teach me something too, so the video is kind of educational as well, if you want to stretch it that way. Basically, first, I want to give you some background on our relationship. I only had one boyfriend in high school. We met in junior year in gym class of all places. We somehow wound up dating for 3 or 4 or 5 months, even though we were kind of in slightly different social circles, and I don't know that we had enough in common to really encourage a fully functional relationship. And in any case, as I remember, he was kind of an asshole. He was good most of the time, but sometimes he got a little handsy, wanted to put his hands in places that I did not want his hands, and when I said no, he would say, oh okay, and then a day or two later would attempt again. And because my self-esteem was shit at the time, I allowed this to continue until he broke up with me. Basically, when I got dumped, I was maybe a little upset for like a day, and then I was just really relieved that it was over. So, if we skip now to summer 2013, he sent me a message on Facebook. I was actually extremely surprised to hear from him at all. And what the message said was even more surprising. He expressed a wish to go out to dinner together as a way to try and make up for being an asshole to me when we were in high school. And my knee-jerk reaction was to say, no thanks. But I thought about it for a little bit. I don't want to get into any detail at this point, but June 2013 was essentially the worst month probably of my entire life. So when my ex contacted me at the end of June, I essentially had a feeling of, well, I guess it is something different to do other than sitting around my house being miserable. And honestly, how much worse can he possibly make my life at this point? Also, it had been 5 years. I was a different person. Maybe he had changed too. I deserved to give him a chance. Maybe I could make a new friend, because I knew I definitely did not want to date him. So I met him. We went to Applebees. I don't like Applebees that much, but it was cheap, and I figured I wasn't sure if he was going to pay, and I knew that because I was unemployed, Applebees was one of the only places that I could afford. Not only did he pay, which was like 20 times more than I expected from him anyway, he actually seemed kind of pleasant. We somehow wound up sitting at the table for like 3 hours, just like catching up on our lives. I wasn't 100% certain that he had changed super dramatically, but he wasn't awful. I enjoyed myself. So when we said goodnight and he asked if I wanted to hang out again sometime, I was like, sure, why not? Because I hadn't come to harm yet. After we went to Applebee's, we kind of entered into what I maybe might call a flirtationship. We just, chit-chat about our lives. My life was shitty. I was glad to have the distraction. Sometimes he did things that I didn't really care for, such as texting me in the middle of the night when I was asleep, or making pop culture references and then refusing to tell me what the reference was from, and then kind of belittling me for not knowing. I was pretty sure that at least some of those late night weekend text messages that woke me up were attempted booty calls, but I ignored all of them, so I will never know. And then a couple times I accidentally got texts from him that he said he hadn't meant to send me. For instance, there was one where he was talking about getting an HJ from a girl at a concert. But at this point, any annoyance I felt was outweighed by my amusement. So I basically just let everything continue. And so we approached September. In September, I got a job, and I felt like I was worth something again. I felt way happier just from having a job, and just a lot of the bad things that had happened in the summer were starting to be further and further behind me. Things started to become increasingly flirty with my ex. I was still fairly positive that I didn't want to date him, although I was not as sure as I had once been. My philosophy was, I'm not going to make a decision until he says or does something outright, very blatantly, to let me know what's in his head, because I don't want to guess. And then we went to see Don John together. Don John, in case you don't remember, was a movie that came out like early last fall, late last summer, where Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays this guy, John, who is essentially a porn addict. That movie was way more sexual than I thought it would be, which was kind of uncomfortable for me sitting next to him, knowing our history. He kept checking his phone, which really pissed me off. But somehow, anyway, he and I wound up holding hands for most of the movie. And I remember walking out of the theater thinking I probably should not have done that, given the fact that I was more likely to turn him down if he said anything than I was to accept him. But so, my life was getting happier and happier, and as I felt happier, I was realizing how full of bullshit my ex was. I guess what happened is that as I grew more content with my own personal things that were happening, I needed the distraction of my ex less and less. And as I grew less reliant on that distraction, I also grew less tolerant of his bullshit. So then, one day I finally snapped and I cut him off. He did the thing again where he was like, I'm going to make a TV reference and not tell you what show it's from, and be really condescending about the fact that you have not watched all of the same shows as me. I said, you know what? Fuck off. Don't text me anymore. I'm done with your bullshit. I'm not doing this anymore. And he said, okay. And then a few weeks later, he texted me and said, oh, I forgot already why we stopped talking. And I ignored him. And he has sent me several more messages since then, and I have ignored every single one of them. I am having none of that shit. I told you there was a lesson to this. And the lesson is, basically, don't ever date your ex. Just don't do it. Don't even try. Don't say, it's been 5 years. He's better. He's changed. It'll be okay. Just don't do it. It's a bad idea. You will maybe not regret it, but you'll realize it was a bad idea, just like I did when after I held hands with him at the movies and realized that he was still an asshole. I think the only exception is maybe if you wait like maybe 20 years, because I think in 20 years someone can perhaps maybe there is a snowball's chance in hell that they will have matured enough to not treat you like shit anymore. But also, if they do, hopefully in 20 years, you will be a strong enough person to just tell them to fuck off. That's it. In the comments, tell me what your opinion is on this whole issue. Do you think it's okay to ever date your exes? Or do you think it's better to just burn the bridge forever when the relationship ends? And you can subscribe if you want to, or don't if you don't. I'm not your mom. I can't make you do anything. And I'll see you next time. Peace out. Today you've watched krystaaaalkay. You can subscribe if you want, but if you don't, that's okay.